Welcome to the Praying and Slaying Podcast, a Light the Fire Outdoors production, where meatheads Aaron and John take you through a day in the life of the praying and slaying lifestyle. Without further ado, here's the next episode of the Praying and Slaying Podcast.
So, for everybody who's listening, we had a really cool story that John just shared. I asked him to share it again, kind of to kick this thing off with some positive notes, especially with all the stuff going on in the world today. Probably a good thing to have a good positive story. I mean, turkey hunting's always good, but
yeah. So I've always had a boat. I guess not always, the last 15 years or so. And last spring, for whatever reason, I decided to sell mine and just either start over or whatever, not have a boat for a while. And I was out fishing with a buddy and just had a great time. And it's kind of like, once the sea gets in you, it's in you. And I missed having a boat. And so, of course, I jumped on one of the websites and started looking. And I was like, wow, this boat is awesome. It's right in my hometown, too. A lot of times you find a good boat and it's like, 6 to 10 hours away or 5 states away. And you're like, man, I wish I was here. But this boat happened to be right in Duluth. And I was like, I showed the wife and she thought it was pretty cool. And she's like, well, let's see if we can go look at it. And I messaged the guy and he's like, yeah, come on over. And as soon as we pulled into the parking lot where this boat was, my wife's jaw dropped, and she noticed that I saw it. She tried to quick snap it back up, and it was a little unexpected that we come back into a boat because we just really hadn't talked about it. So it was really a quick decision. And look at this boat, let's go look at the boat. Then all of a sudden we're there, and if I was going to get another boat, my heart was kind of set on Grady White. That's just, they kind of speak for themselves as a fiberglass boat. They're the kind of the Lexus of boats. And I'd never heard of this boat. It was a Century. So I was asking the guy about that, what the difference was. And he explained that, the Grady White's a Lexus and this is a Toyota, very functional boat and whatever. But the boat had all kinds of features that I want in a boat, and looked it all over and it looked really good. And the guy's like, well, do you want to take it for a test ride? And I was like, I don't know. And my wife was like, let's do it. So we put it in the water. We test it all out. Everything works great. Nice boat. I like the ride of it, everything. And we put it back on the trailer and we kind of, I asked him what he'd take for it and he counter offered. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. I'll sleep on it and I'll let you know in the morning, and that next morning came, and for whatever reason, I just decided I'd reached out to you trying to, that's kind
and
of,
there was
and I was like, hey man,
miscommunication. Well, misinterpretation, right. I should say, on my own.
Right. So to digress, so since I'm still kind of working on my relationship with God, and I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, no matter how good the relationship is. But I reached out, and I reached out to you, and I'm like, hey, bro, can you help me out? Can you help me summon the big guy upstairs and help me make this decision? And you kind of thought it was someone else that I was asking for, right?
So as you guys know, John and I both work for Tacticam, and anyway, we always say the big guy. 9 times out of 10 when we're talking, it's the owner of Tacticam, and so, because I don't know, we've had a few changes here and there and stuff, and so I thought maybe John was nervous to reach out to Jeff to see if it was his to get his opinion maybe on this big purchase John was about to make. Dude, you don't need my you got a direct line, which I guess is true in either case, but I'm like, you got a direct line to the boss if you need him, and he.
Yeah, and I was confused. Like, geez, man, I thought, that's how it worked. You reach out to people and ask them to help you reach him.
Yeah, to pray about it because he was going to sleep on it. He wanted to think on it. It's a big purchase, so yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So then the next morning I wake up. That night I did pray. Without your help, I still went ahead and did it.
I had nothing.
And when I woke up. It was like a solid no. I cracked my eyes open. The first thought in my head was just no. And I was like, well, okay, this is crazy because it's got everything I want. For people that are fishermen, radar, autopilot, fish hawk, the kicker motor already on there, everything, a really nice trailer, the perfect length for me, and size of boat. And so rationally, my mind was like, do it, and my gut just said, don't do it. And then when I woke up that morning, it felt the same way, with just a solid no. The first word in my head was no. So I'm like, well, whatever. I owe it to this guy to give him a call and tell him, and I just really couldn't believe it. But I've learned a long time ago to trust your gut, and I guess I could tell that why. It was my first day that I ever started downhill skiing, and my friend had a lot of experience skiing, and we started off pretty slow, but I took to it pretty quickly, and we were just having a great time, and then everything was going fine. But the whole morning we were trying to find our two other buddies, and we finally find them. And of course we go to this hill. I think it was called Helsinki. And it's just like, you look down, it's like a straight drop and a hairpin turn to the right. And those three take off, of course, and they're just, slicing down the hill. And I'm like, man, my gut just said, don't do it, don't go down this hill. And I was like, I know I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to lose these guys. We just found them. I'm like, so I shove off. So I go down the hill right where I need to make my right-hand turn. I was going way too fast, and I go to stop, and my skis go right out from under me, and I go flying into the brush and wind up hitting a cement pillar, a support beam for the chairlift, and it was just horrifying pain. I'm sure I was just screaming out. My friend came over there, and they were just like, the look on their face, Do
you even ski, bro?
So long story no, I never had skied before, and honestly, I'd never have skied downhill skied since,
I probably never will now hearing the story. So,
so I wound up with a like a big break in my pelvic bone, which is which was terrible. But I was really lucky not to break like my hip socket or obviously my back, and obviously I would have had a lot different life. So sometimes I'll be thinking about making a decision, and I'll be wanting to go against my gut, and my mind will take me right back to the top of that hill again and be like, remember when you didn't listen to your gut? So I always listen to my gut. And that day when I woke up, and I was surprised that my gut still felt, don't do it. It was like a solid no. So I call the guy, and I'm like, it's a beautiful boat. I know you're a good guy, but I can't. It's not the right time. I can't get the boat now. I'm sorry to tell you that. And he was cool about it. He understood. I went about my day, and it wasn't long, like 15 or 20 minutes. He called me back, and he said, hey man, I'm going through some stuff, and I really need the money. And I know some of the same people that you do. And I talked to them. They all said, you're a good guy. So because of that and the situation that I'm in, I want to offer it to you for $5,000 less. And I was like, wow, well, I'm going to need to, and I was kind of in shock. I just told him, yeah, and I'll need to think about that and talk to my wife because she's at work. So I'll let you know tomorrow. And yeah, obviously, that's a lot of money to knock off.
Yeah.
And I decided to get the boat, and I realized once again, whenever your gut tells you to do something, you got to stick with it. And I'm sure that the big guy upstairs helped me to that decision, and it saved me $5,000. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Super cool.
And wanted to share that with you. And
yeah, that's like
whatever.
I mean, outside of the standards of negotiation, I mean, like you had already offered the guy more money, and that's what you're willing to do, and then just sleeping on, praying about the decision and the whole nine. But I mean, in this case, it's a boat, but definitely bigger application there for sure. Just kind of, if you can't make a decision or something doesn't feel right, just pray about it, put it in his hands, and forget about it, and then it'll come back to you some way, shape, or form. The answer you need.
Yeah,
that's cool,
right? I don't know. Just had to trust my instincts there again, and wait for another day.
Yeah, for sure, man.
There again yesterday, we were excited to use the boat, and got to the landing, and the wind was just howling like 30 miles an hour. It would have, it's had I known the trailer a little bit more, I've never taken it off and putting it back on. It's a pretty big boat, so it's like, have to trust my instincts there again, and I did. And whatever.
Yep. Go crashing through the whitecap waves.
Yeah, the first time out, and and my wife was there too. So I try and kind of protect her as much as I can from situations that could be scary,
Potentially dangerous. Right. Now, do you think that affected your decision to like an ultimate point, or would you, like, if it would have just been you and your buddies, would you have gone out?
Maybe not. There's one of my other friends that's taught me about everything I know on Lake Superior, and I trust the guy with my life, and if he would have been there too, he would have probably been like, let's throw her in there, it'll be fine, let's go. If he was there, probably he probably would have been the only one. So
yeah,
I just didn't see the value in it. We were all excited to get out on it. We never, we just had that test ride. So now the boat's sitting in my yard, and I was out there testing out all the night lights on it last night, crushing a beer or two. I've already caught like 500 fish on it in my backyard.
That's awesome, man. Sitting in the captain's seat with your captain hat on and just soaking it in.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. Well, shoot, and then I guess the fishing season's here and turkey season's over.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, I'm sure. Is it over in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. The last weekend.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome, man.
Mm-hmm.
So how many birds you end up with?
I got one and my buddy got one. We can only get 2 in Minnesota, and we took his girlfriend out for one weekend, and I'll never fully understand a turkey, but we hunted both the farms I have property on, and we hit the public land. We probably stopped at like 50 to 75 different spots where normally you can get a turkey to gobble, hitting all the public land, and we did not hear a single gobble.
Wow.
The whole weekend.
That's crazy.
So Minnesota's tough. I'm sure other states are like that too, but for whatever reason, sometimes they just shut off, and there's nothing you can do other than if you had a pattern or something, you could sit and wait like hunting a deer. But
yeah, yep, or knew where there might be roosting for the night, or yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And I don't live right in where I turkey, and I have to travel about an hour and 15 minutes. And this year with the pandemic going on, I wasn't able to do a ton of scouting and stuff, and so I wasn't able to pick up on any huge pattern. And but we still made the most of it. We had fun. We camped. We got a person out turkey hunting and had never done it before, and she really loved. She was fascinated by all the public land and all the places that we took her. So she just thought it was cool that she had no idea that there's that much public land I suppose we covered a 50 square mile area looking for a turkey to go. But that's where that OnX map comes in handy, man. I even expanded further than I ever have, because it's like somewhere there's got to be a Tom that's, but just didn't happen.
Yeah, OnX is a heck of a tool, man. And then, even if you have places that are private, I don't know how Minnesota works, but here in Montana, you have what's called block management, and they just recently opened it up to. Usually, it's like reserved for deer, turkey, deer, elk, bear, stuff like that. But this year, maybe last year, but this was the first year I paid attention to it, and I know it's new. They have spring turkey lands that can open up, like if a farmer's got some issues, because apparently here in Montana, hay and cattle are a huge thing, and feeding cattle in the tough winters and stuff is a big deal. So they stockpile hay, obviously, and apparently turkeys will do just about as much damage as deer or elk will. And these birds just get so comfortable and congregated on private ground just because it's easy feed. I mean, go to bed and walk to the hay pile in the morning. It's but apparently that's a big deal. So anyway, that's even a valuable tool too, to see kind of where. I don't know if you guys have that in Minnesota or not, like where private guys can put up land that you can access on there.
Not in a mass scale like that. It's more tax forfeited land. There's not a big program that puts hunters and farmers to get in touch like that that I'm aware of.
Okay.
At least I'm in central and northern Minnesota. It's possible, there's a lot more farming in southern Minnesota, like crops and stuff. But
for sure,
it could be down there, but not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But when you were saying turkeys can cause damage, it's kind of funny. My mind went to a story where this guy was telling me he had big soybean field, and then after he harvested the soybeans, he said that especially late in the fall, there'd be giant groups of turkeys out there, and he'd watch them like running around all day and like going to this certain spot or like certain group of spots. Like say there was a dozen spots, they'd like run over, pick something up, run back to their spot, and run over, pick something up, run back to that spot. He said they were out there collecting soybeans that they could find and putting them in spots. So there'd be these pyramid piles of soybeans that they could come back to and eat later.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
And the whole field, he said, was full of turkeys. He said he's seen it multiple times. And he said then after the turkeys go to roost, the deer come out and eat the piles.
Yeah, that's my first thought was, well, raccoons are going to have a heyday or something, or deer or whatever.
Yeah.
That's
yeah. So I'm curious if anyone else out there has ever seen that, because
maybe they have some kind of a deal with them. You know, if they tell the deer, hey, we're going to make this easy for you, we're going to put little bait piles out for you, but you guys have to roll if you see a hunter coming to the woods. Okay.
Right, for sure.
It's like a mafia type thing. That's insane. I would have never thought a turkey was smart enough to do that. I think they're a fairly smart bird, but I don't think I wouldn't have thought that they had that kind of cognitive ability. That's nuts.
Let's talk about your hunt.
Yeah, so as I say, we're it's private ground. Brings us to the Turkey Taker series, and we decided we're going to work backwards from forwards. So the last man on the board was myself. I got a double out in eastern Montana to wrap the season up. Just super, super cool. I think the coolest part, part of the coolest part was, it was one of those hunts, and you see it on TV all the time, like, oh, I'm super, super high, and then we're super low, and let's, drag ourselves the whole season and watch the ups and downs and the emotional roller coaster that hunters have. And then it's always the last minute of the last day of how it happens. And it's just like classic TV. And, part of you starts to wonder, okay, like every single hunt goes that way. It's probably made up, but this hunt literally laid out just like that. And, John knows, because again, turkey hunting with the Tactacam people, I've got a track record for shooting more than I hit. And this was definitely one of this hunt had some of that in it too. So anyway, what's that?
Like I said, really, I didn't know. I guess I haven't even heard the story. We've been saving it, so it's all new to me too. But that I'm looking forward to hearing how many shots you got to shoot.
Well, yeah, for sure. I've got a budget laid aside for shotgun shells for turkey every year. So
I know what you did for Christmas.
Yeah, right. So no, actually, I've got a stockpile of turkey shell every year. It was like one of those things when I was growing up. Like every year, I'd go buy a cheap box of Winchester, like the 10 shell box of Winchester Super X, just the classic turkey loads, just because always like, why not? And they'd go on sale every year or whatever. And then I had a business that closed out in Virginia, the hardware store that we used to get all of our supplies from, most of our supplies from, for the park I worked at. They had a going out of business sale, and they were just like dumping all their ammo. So I went in there and bought like every muzzleloader pack of bullets they had and every turkey load that they had. It just stupid amounts. Like, I'll never shoot these turkey shells in my entire life, I promise. Well, I might now, because I've figured out how bad of a shot I am. But yeah, so needless to say, I've got like, 15-year-old boxes of shells in my garage still that I just go through every once in a while, and I'll always bring some out to shoot clays with and stuff. So anyway, we'd planned this hunt. We were going to do like a big Tactacam team hunt, because we kind of have our team program split up in regions, and a bunch of us live up here in Montana, or several. And so we were going to try to plan like this hunt out in eastern Montana, and it didn't work out last year. We had a couple dates set, well, then COVID hit. And so that just pretty much put the whole kibosh on the whole thing. And it came down to the last weekend was coming. And here in Montana, you got to split your time between bear season. And if you do both, you got to split your turkey season with bear season, and try to find time to do both. And the other guy, Jeremy, that was going to go out with us, ended up having a doctor's appointment, I think, for his kid or something that final weekend. And I was just like, man, it's maybe not going to work out this year either. And I don't want to be like the only guy that shows up. But then I'm like, well, I bought the tags. I'd kick myself if I didn't. Like, I need to just go do it. I'm never going to kill, a turkey and just sit in a home, kind of like someone I was watching. Or was it you that said that?
I think it was me that said that. But
The great John Landers is quoted as saying, "You can't kill a turkey from the couch, bud." So so anyway, I made the 5-hour trip out there last weekend. Clay Peterman, he's one of our guys out in that side of the state, just a heck of a guy, and has some land out there that he owns, and obviously there's lots of public land, and just knows a ton of people in the area that have turkey issues. And so he said, the rule is you come out here and you kill, if a farmer's going to tell you, if he lets you hunt on his property, he's going to say, if you kill one turkey, you better take 6 with you. And anyway, so I just had this mecca dream in my head of like, oh, dude, this is going to be easy. We're going to go out. We're going to get on birds sitting on a hay pile, sit there, crack some cold ones, and just pick them off. I just had this picture painted. So I get out there, meet Clay, get all acquainted, and then kind of make a plan for the next morning, and we go out. And the first spot we go to is the farmer that has the issues with the turkeys. And so, my head's just buzzing like, sweet, grab 3 shells for the shotgun. We head down into this, we head off this big, huge hill down into this like timbered gulch kind of thing. And we just start walking, and every few yards we're calling and not hearing anything. He's like, man, that's weird. Usually you're getting hammered with gobbles by this time. We're like, okay, well, maybe they're down further or whatever. So we just keep walking. And we end up catching this spot where the tree's clear on our left, and it kind of goes up the hill a little bit. There's a big haystack up there. I'm looking up there, and I see something moving on the haystack, and I get my binos up, and it's a coyote. And I'm like, well, Clay, there's a coyote up there. Maybe they're not, maybe the birds aren't hanging out right here, or maybe coyotes ran through and I burned them off. Well, it turns out the more we sat there and watched that haystack, there was like 4 coyotes just piled on that haystack. So I don't know, maybe they'd killed a bird. We didn't ever go up there and look, but I was like, man, we grabbed the wrong gun. We should have brought the AR-15 or something. Yeah. And just mowed down some coyotes. And after a while, they just got uncomfortable with us standing there. And we're just like, man, there's 4 coyotes in this area. There's probably not going to, if the birds are here, they're not. So we end up driving around, looking at some different spots, and we end up coming like on the side of the road, there's just like a little plum thicket, and we just get past it, and he's explaining to me on the left side of the road is his aunt's property, and she likes looking at the turkeys, so we can't go hunt down there, but that's where they always hang out if they're up here. And I look out the right side window as we pass this plum thicket, and there's like 30 turkeys right out in the open, just right behind there. I was like, oh, Clay, can we hunt this side? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So we stop the truck and back up and grab the turkey reaper, and I crawl from the ditch on my belly, crawl around that plum thicket. I mean, it's like the turkeys. This is why I don't think turkeys are the smartest bird in the world, because they saw the truck, they saw it back up 10 feet, so it hid it from them, and then they, let me come up there with the reaper, and they weren't spooked at all. They just kind of stood where they were. They were about 60 yards out, so I didn't want to take a shot at one. And I think it ended up, Clay kind of came around a little too far, and they could see him, because he was trying to call in from behind the bush or whatever. And anyway, they just started moving off, like not spooked, just, we're out of here. We're not gonna play around and see what you guys are. So we let him work over the hill, and then we end up running around, went down and around, so kind of out of their line of sight, and kind of to where we thought we could make a move on them wherever they were going, get ahead of them.
The old half
moon trick. That's right. It's got a name now. And so then we get up there, and I end up finding a really cool, Midwest, would have been a Midwest 10-point whitetail shed antler, but out here it's a 4x4, 5x5, right? I don't know. Yeah, 5x5. Yeah, good grief, can't even do math. So anyway, that was pretty cool. But that took us a little bit longer because we walked, the extra 75, 80 yards to go see it, make sure it was a shed, and grab it, and came back down. Well, the birds ended up way further ahead of us than I thought, which was kind of cool to see out there, just because Montana's not like Iowa or Minnesota where I'm used to turkey hunting, where you got thick patches of big timber, definitely bigger timber in Minnesota than Iowa, but either way, like they're pretty congregated and they don't really have to move over vast amounts of land. But out here, like everything's wide open with little tiny pockets of habitat timber. And they can cover a mile in a matter of minutes. I mean, it's insane. And anyway, so we get down there, we see the birds up on top, and we're like, oh crap, they busted us, but we still got down into this little timber draw, worked around, and we stopped where we could see one of the birds starting to strut up on top of this hill. And there really wasn't a great way to get up there. So I told Clay, I was like, well, instead of having 2 bodies going up there, let me take the reaper. You stay here and call every once in a while just to kind of keep their attention down lower, and I'll work up one side or the other with the Reaper, and hopefully, we can make this happen. So I start working up the right side of this little like plum thicket draw that was cutting up this field like waterway. So where I was out of sight of the birds, and then when I got to where it starts to curve up back north, the birds had an open exposed hillside to me. And so I kind of just stood there, got the Reaper around the corner to where I could see with my head. And there was 2 hens and a tom sitting there. And I watched the tom like bed down. As soon as that Reaper came around the corner, he like, I've never seen a bird do that, but he just like laid down, came out of strut, laid down. And the hens, they looked at me obviously, but they went back to doing what they were doing. They thought I was a turkey. So I cut through the hedgerow and started going up the backside. And I'm like, well, worst case, I don't get a shot because this hedge is in between us. Best case, I can convince that tom that I've kind of got into his comfort zone and maybe he'll come out. And so I get up there to the only clearing between me and the birds, and the hen actually went over the hill. So I thought the gig was up. Well, then I just took that fan and just moved it a little bit, kind of like rotated it. Anyway, that tom stood up out of the grass and went to full strut. And it's like, holy crap, it's right there, 70 yards. And I'm sitting there watching him, but I'm standing full upright. My gun's in my right hand, hanging down by my knee. The Reaper's up in front of my face, like fully just standing up full upright. But the way I was positioned, the bird couldn't see my body or something, or figure out I was a 6 foot tall turkey, one of the two. So, yeah. Anyway, I kept thinking he was going to bust, and he never did. And all of a sudden, he starts coming in, just like a classic Reap. And I'm like, holy crap! Like, this is going to happen. Like, this is really going to happen. And I forgot all about like the inefficiency of everything that I was doing. Standing up, my gun's down by my side, the Reaper's in front of my face. I have no cover at this point because the bird is walking straight at me through the cut in the little brush patch. And then he gets within 30 yards, and then it clicks. Like, oh crap! Like, I've got to do something. I've got to get down, put this decoy down, get my gun up, and there's just no way like he's going to see me. Well, next thing you know, he starts coming out of strut, and I had the camera on, so I've got footage of this part. Like, I just took the gun and kind of angled it up the hill so I could hopefully catch it. I was hoping I was getting him on film, and you see him come all the way in, and then he comes out of strut and looks back up the hill, and I'm like, crap, he's going to bust me. Like, he figured it out because he could see my body or something. And I look up, and here comes like 7 jakes just bombing down the hill. Like, they want in on this party. They see him strutting, they see the decoy, they're like coming in. And I was like, oh sweet, this is going to get crazy. I might be able to get a double because I had 2 tags. And yeah. Anyway, at that point, I kind of panicked because I've got more birds coming. He's right there, and he's kind of acting like I can't really tell what he's going to do, but I should have just relied on prior knowledge of birds. If they're convinced you're a turkey and you're not moving, their mind's really hard to change at that point, especially if they're coming in like that. I think that the jakes got him a little itchy because he was probably like wondering if they were going to come for him or something. But anyway, so long story short, I start like slowly kneeling to the ground. Well, then the gig was up because then that bird was like, the jakes couldn't see me moving, but he could. And he was like, I don't know if I like that. And he started like moving away. So I just dropped the decoy, pulled the gun up, got the bead on him and shot, and just clean missed him. He didn't even flinch. He just kept running. And I'm like, God, dang it. So I stand up, and I should have shot at him again because he was the closest bird. He was probably about 40 yards at that point. But my mind went to the gig's up there and just get a double. And so I swung the gun over to these birds that were probably more like 50, 55. And they were 2 jakes, big red heads on them. Or I assume they were jakes, and they were running dead away. And as soon as their heads crisscrossed, I pulled the trigger, and neither one of them flinched either. They just kept going. And I hear Clay say something down in the bottom, and I turn around, and I just like shrug my shoulders to him, And I the birds, like 2 of them stopped up on top of the hill where I could just see their necks and head through the grass. And I'm like, well, I don't know, And so I look down, make sure there's, because I still have my duck plug in, so there was still 1 more shell in my gun. And okay, I just kind of collect myself, calling myself an idiot. Like, man, what did you just do, dude? You blew that. He was right there. You should have just, And then I hear like their little like warning putt. I hear that on my left, back to the north, and I look over there, and there's 3 freaking male birds 40 yards from me that were on my side of the hedgerow that were just standing up there by the roadway. Like, I don't know where they even came from. They were birds that were like slacking, and getting over there with the group or what. But anyway, they were standing right there, and I got the gun up on them, and I was like, no, I'm not going to shoot there. Even though it's a farm road, I could have, but I was like, no, I'm not going to shoot towards a road. And after that humiliating experience, I want to conserve my shells. And anyway, so Clay gets up there. We go through the hedgerow. I'm looking for feathers or something to see if I wounded one. and blood maybe. And to get up to the top of the hill, the birds are already like a mile off. Like we see them going over the next little ridge, and they're going to a totally different timber patch, going back to normal. Like they're just like, oh, that was, annoying, but we're fine. And he's like, where's your bird? And I'm like, I don't know. I said I shot at 3 of them. And he goes, dude, if I would have shot like that, he said, I would have let you use my gun. And anyway, just started rubbing it. I said, well, just don't tell Jeff this, because I said he'll have a friggin' heyday with it. Classic Aaron missing birds. So,
right.
Anyway, so that was that. And then getting on the other side of that hedgerow, though, I think what would have happened if I would have just been patient and let it play out, that bird, there was 2 little cuts through that, through the hedgerow. And I couldn't see the second one just from my position. It could have, if everything would have worked out the way it kind of looked like it would have. I don't know if he would have came directly at me in the clearing I had, because there was actually like a cut through, like almost like a little 4-wheeler road, like 5 yards up from me. I think he probably would have just taken that easy path through there, came over to my side, and then whatever happened would have happened, and it would have just been outstanding, like 5 yards away. Yeah. But I got impatient, and with reaping, I think in looking back on the other reaping experiences I have, I think being patient is 100% key, because they're always going to, once they think you're a Tom at full strut and they're committed to coming to you, regardless of how long it seems to take, I think they're going to come. You just got to let them do their thing. And go ahead.
When you mentioned that, the hillside was full of running in jakes, I got nervous for you.
Yeah.
Because, who wants to be in the middle of 7 guys that want to beat you up,
So it was just like crazy, because you could tell they were like, they just wanted in on the party. They weren't, they were just, they saw the big boy doing what he was doing, and they saw me and were like, let's get in on this.
They're just over there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's exactly how they're acting. So then we end up, we kind of decide, okay, let's go all the way back to the truck, drive up, because we can cut to where those birds went. We could drive into another like field entrance and kind of park and walk from there. So we start heading for them, and we get up to kind of where you start with a reaper. If you got a hill between you and where you think those birds are, it's like definitely to your advantage, because you can get that fan up and kind of let them know that you're there. And when they see that bird or the tail fan, for whatever reason, that drives them more nuts, I think, than just seeing the full reaper. So I was kind of expecting maybe to get them that way. Anyway, I got up, was doing that, and I got to where I could see over the hill, and there was 3 toms down on the bottom strutting, and a bunch of hens kind of just milling around. And I finally got them to gobble. That was like the first gobble we heard, and just calling and stuff. And anyway, I started working towards them, on my knees, just trying to work slow and see if I couldn't maybe drive them nuts to come up the hill to me. And I think they just had enough after the other experience they just had, and they just walked off, put their heads down, started feeding away. And I'm like, well, this gig's up, and I don't need to chase them, because the only way I could is on the opposite side of the timber row, and it's super thick. Well, I start walking down there anyway, thinking maybe if I can get out to this little bump out, I could set up there, stick my decoy out in the field on the opposite side of the trees, and maybe kind of catch them off guard like a bird was ahead of them. And as I'm doing that, I'm, looking through the trees at these other birds, and I just happened to look forward in the road in front of me, and there's a jake that was coming at me, until I like, as I see him, I'm like actively like dropping the reaper from in front of me, and he sees me, and then all of a sudden he just takes off bolting. So I had one shell in my gun, and he was like 35, maybe 40 yards, but downhill. I just pull up and tried, just like, I think I was just like disappointed. So I pulled up and took a swing at him. I know I shot way over his head, just because he had his head down running away, and it was a downhill shot, and I wasn't paying attention where my bead was, but he didn't even touch him. But then really laid into me after that. That's 3 shots missed, So
you're 0 for 3.
I was 0 for 3. Yeah, took 3 swings and 3 misses, but I struck out. And at that point,
kind of 0 for 4 because you were going for a double.
Yeah, that's a good point. 0 for 4.
We don't need to beef those stats up in the wrong direction. We'll go with 0 for 3 around the day.
Exactly. So Clay goes, I get back there, and he's like, "What'd you shoot at?" And I said, "Oh, there was a jake that came up," and I said, he surprised me just as much as I surprised him. But I said, I just instinctively, I pulled up, flipped the safety off, and took a swing. It wasn't even like I thought about it. It was just like, oh crap, turkey, bang, And anyway, he goes, dude, he said, how many shells do you have left? And I'm like, I think I have 3 left in my bino harness back in the truck. And he goes, dude, he's like, you're half out of ammo and the day's just started. We're only 2 hours into this hunt. He said, you need to really watch it now. So I told him, I said, I'm not shooting at anything unless it's a guaranteed deal now, you know? So we harassed the crap out of those birds the rest of the day. And I'll fast forward through most of it. So we get up on top of this giant hill. You can see pretty much almost his entire property, the other farm we started at in the morning. And I get the binos up and I catch three male birds. I can't tell what they were, Jake's or Tom's, but they were all hiding out in the shade. It was like midday. And they were right where the bump out I was telling you, that's where I wanted to be, was right at that little bump out in the hedgerow. And so we end up trying to make a play on them while they were in their shade, and a bird busted us couldn't have been 5 yards from us when we came around this little corner, and we were kind of kicking around. Do we stop down here in the bottom and start calling to bring them to us, or should we kind of get up closer to them? And we made the wrong call, tried to get closer, and there was just a bird we couldn't see in there. He blew them out. And then we end up in a couple other creek bottoms. We actually found a dead turkey, which is really weird. I don't know. It looked like it had been dead for a day or two, but nothing had touched it. It was just a dead Jake laying there in the
maybe you heard all that shooting and had a heart attack.
Could have been. it was just really weird, like seeing a bird like that. And checked him out. We're like, okay, those turkeys hanging out in this creek too. And so we kind of started working around the creek bottom, and it was just one of them deals. Like there's a bunch of like it's like kind of like these plum bushes and sage. And so we were kind of staying up higher because the creek bottom was just full of ticks and stuff. I bet you I picked 50, 60 ticks off me that day. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And not attached, but just all over the place, you know? Anyway, so I was trying to stay up out of the tall, you know, the wet grass and stuff down in the creek bottom. Well, anyway, Clay was walking ahead of me, so that was a lesson learned. Leave the guy with the gun and the decoy in front. And next thing you know, I see a Tom standing there right in this like plum sage connection, and I'm like, oh crap. I said, Clay, get down. And he got down, and I never pulled the gun up just for safety reasons, because it wasn't just ideal. But I was watching that bird, and I'm like, okay, where's he going to go? He starts cutting up the hill. Well, then like you see 20 or 30 birds milling around in there, and they all start following him out because they're nervous. So I cut all the way up and around, and we sit there and
half moon
come out. What's that?
So you half mooned him again?
Half mooned him again. This time I did a waxing crescent instead of waning. And anyway, so we got up around them. Those birds ended up busting out of there. You're watching birds run on every hill you can see. There's birds running over these hillsides, just running away. And anyway, it was kind of cool though, because we sat there for a few minutes, let things calm down. We actually saw Jake come back and start heading back up the creek towards the dead one we found. I'm like, oh, cool. Maybe we can make a play on him. And a friggin' hen turkey, she was, like 10 or 20 feet from where Clay was sitting. There was a hen turkey sitting there in the sage. We couldn't even see her. And all of a sudden, she just like a rabbit, when they bust out from under you when you're about to step on them. She did that to us, which was just kind of, it's kind of cool, but I don't know if she had a nest there or what. So anyway, that was pretty much day one. And then we went and I met his parents, and that was pretty cool, and kind of met some of his family and stuff. And we drove all over God's country out there trying to find more birds and stuff. And we ended up making this run up north of that town where he lives. And there's some public land up there. There's a couple landowners that he has permission to hunt on. There's this other guy that he's never asked for permission, but he thought he had a good chance of, that guy maybe saying, yeah. So we head up to that guy's land. He's not home. We try calling him. He's not home, but there's just some monster toms and hens out on his property, like in these different fields and stuff. And we're like, man, that'd be really cool if we could hunt here, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. Back to town. He's like, well, maybe he'll call me back, in the morning, or whatever. And so anyway, we drive around the rest of the day, showing me all these like deer spots and telling me all of his hunting stories. He grew up in that area, so he's got just tons of cool stories and stuff. Kind of just, and at that point, I'm almost glad we're not hunting, because I'm beating myself up. Just like, dude, I blew it. I had one really good opportunity that would have just been sweet, and I blew it. And then anyway, we end up roosting a couple birds in that same draw that we spooked the last group out of. And so we're like, okay. And I told him, I said, maybe let's just go classic, throw the Reaper away. Let's, I got my ground blind limit. Let's bring my ground blind out here in the morning. We'll set up, we'll put a few decoys out, and we'll just do the classic ground blind hunt. And, cause I wasn't sure how long I'd stay that day. I knew I needed to at least leave by noon. So We get out there the next morning before daylight, set up the same tree we saw them roosted in. We got, get on them. And as soon as you could see, get the binos up and birds in the tree. It's like, sweet, we got them. Well, it ended up being 2 hens that were just in there together. There wasn't a male bird to be found. We heard some gobbling in the draw behind us where I shot at the third turkey, or shot the third time, I guess. And so we kind of thought maybe we set up on the wrong draw. Well, then just nothing works out. We start driving around. We find one male bird cruising across to go into this that draw where I'd shot it the third time. So we end up going through there to make a play, and we end up within, it was like 15 feet from the 2 hens. Like we kind of intersected them, and good thing I had the Reaper with me, because that was the only thing that didn't tell them I was a person. And they stood there forever watching me, and they finally went to milling around. Well, off to in the thick part of the brush where we couldn't see, I kept hearing a hen like kind of putting or whatever. I thought it was a hen, but I'm like, man, I didn't think there was definitely not 3 birds with them, but there could have been another one in this draw. Well, it turns out it was that male bird. He had came in to hang out with them, found them, and they were all hanging out there. We just couldn't see them. And so we ended up making a move like, well, the hens kind of moved down to where we couldn't see them. So we started getting up around thinking we were going to run into the Jake later. And the Jake ended up busting us actually and got out of there. And so then we just hopped in the truck, and I was like, well, I guess we got a couple hours left. Let's go fill up with gas and, drive around, see what we can't, if we can't find any birds out in the open to go play with. And drove around, and we end up going. He's like, well, you want to go check out that guy's property again, see if he's home? I'm like, we can, man. It's up to you. It's your miles on your truck, which we put on like 250 miles that weekend, just driving around, looking for birds and stuff. So we get all the way up there. The guy's home, and he goes up and, asks and stuff. And he gets back in the truck, and he's kind of got that look on his face, like I can't really tell what the answer was. And I said, so how'd that go? He goes, he told us to go anywhere we needed to do what we wanted to do. Cool. And I'm like, dang, man, heck yeah. So we were both just jacked, and we didn't see any birds coming through his property that morning though. But we knew where we saw the big ones the day before. It's like 11 o'clock at this point. I'd already texted my wife, hey, we're going to go check one more spot, probably end up, if we get permission, we'll hunt it. If not, we're probably going to be heading home. But my goal is to be on the road by noon to take that 5-6 hour drive back home. And anyway, so it's like 11:30-ish when we park the truck in this like little dip. And it's like this big horseshoe that goes of timber, like a timbered creek bottom that goes around this big field in the middle. And that's where we saw the birds strutting the day before. There's nothing out there, the wind howling. So we're like, maybe they're hanging out in the timber. So we decide, what we're going to do is go up one side of the horseshoe, walk 50, 60 yards at a time, be real quiet and careful, do some calling, and just work up one side. And if we don't see anything, we'll cut across the hayfield and come down the other draw, and that'll be the end of the hunt. So I'm not having huge high hopes, because there's a good likelihood there could be birds in there, but just the way it was playing, it's just like our best shot was more than likely, in my opinion. I thought we were going to maybe jump shoot something, And anyway, so we walk all the way up. We get all the way to the end of the draw doing that game plan. Hadn't seen a thing, kicked a couple whitetail bucks out of there. And we get to the end, and there's like this little rise in the hill with a fence on it. And on the other side of the fence, we'd seen some birds about 400 yards from that fence up the hill the day before. So I step up out of the bottom into that little field there. There's nothing there. I'm glassing. There's nothing up on the hillside fields or anything. And get back down to the bottom, talk to Clay. I'm like, maybe we should just cut across. And I was like, well, before we cross, let me rip one call here just for the heck of it. So step back up on that hillside, or step back up onto that fence. And I just ripped like 3 or 4 like really loud clucks or whatever. And within a second, like 3 gobblers, they couldn't have been 50 yards from us, just ripped off. And both of us look at each other. I turn around, there's a tree behind me back down the hill a little bit. I just like almost fell off the fence row, landed against my butt against the tree, turned the camera on. Clay gets behind the tree where he can kind of see through it. And he's like, can you see him? Can you see him? I'm like, no. I said, let me call again. So I called, they ripped gobbles again. And he's like, they're coming. I can see them. There's 3 of them. And I'm like, oh, no way. This is going to be sweet, And where I'm sitting from where he had about a 4-foot difference between eyesight than I did. So he could see this whole thing play out. I guess they all came up out of the timber together, went to full strut. They just strutted up there for about a minute. And then, but they weren't making any noise. So I couldn't figure out which direction they were coming from. And he said he could see them, but I didn't know what they were doing because I couldn't see them. And so I'm pointing at this only little clearing of grass that I have in front of me, like right under the bottom rung of the fence. And he's like, here they come. And I'm just getting jacked. But then I'm starting to think, okay, maybe they're going to come to a spot where he can see them, but I can't. I'm going to have to like stand up. So I'm trying to play out these different scenarios, or maybe I should move now because I can't see him. Maybe I can get. So I end up just sitting there, and he's like, dude, one's right there. Can you see his head? And I'm like, no, I can't. Well, then I really start looking at that grass, and I could see a red. There was so much grass obstructing, I wouldn't have been able to tell if he wouldn't have told me the birds were right there. But I could see one's neck and head coming through the grass, and the first two come through. He's like, dude, shoot. And I'm like, no. I said, I'm going to shoot the last one. He said there was 3. He's like, oh no, there's another one coming. Because I'm like, if I shoot the last one, I know like turkeys, like one's going to come back and beat up on the other one that's dead.
Yeah.
At least one of them is. And so he told me to shoot. I didn't shoot. And then all of a sudden, which worked out best because I could see the third one the best. Like his head popped into the clearing, and this is all I've got on video is his head there. And as soon as he gets through there, I told Clay, I said, as soon as that third one pops in, I'm going to shoot the third one. And he's like, okay. So that third one comes through, pull the trigger. Whitehead disappear. So I'm assuming I got it. I don't know. And he's like, shoot again, get a double, shoot again. And I'm like, I can't see the other birds. I'm like, no. I said, they're going to come back. He's like, dude, shoot, they're going to get away. I'm like, no, Clay, let's be quiet. They're going to come back. And sure enough, I see 2 whiteheads coming back to just right exactly where I shot the other one almost. And I waited till they separated, and I pulled the trigger on the second one and dropped him. Got up there. If we would have had a third tag, if like Jeremy or somebody would have been out there, we would have got a triple, I'm sure of it. But anyway, so stood up, lay there, 5 feet apart from each other, 2 dead toms, just huge, big old Montana Merriams, and both of them stone dead. I've never shot a turkey that didn't flop, and neither one of them made a move. So I mean, it was like laid the perfect hammer on him. He's like, so anyway, it was a really cool way to end that. Looked at the clock; it was like 11:45.
Yeah,
and, I mean, literally like highs, lows, last minute of the last day, last hunt, and it just worked out. We got a double, and it was just, I mean, we couldn't have asked for better birds out here. I mean, they're just big old toms, and Merriams are, from what I understand, what Clay was telling me, Merriams are like a lot smaller than Easterns, or they're like one of the smaller subspecies of turkeys.
Mm-hmm.
But both of them just big mature toms, nice for what that species is. I mean, just great birds. So
yeah.
So I end up with 6 turkey breasts, 6 drumsticks, 6 thighs, 6 wings for the season.
That's awesome. And you wound up 2 for 5 on the weekend then.
2 for I upped my percentage. 2 for 5 exactly on the shooting. So I had 1 shot left in the gun just in case,
Yeah.
And that's how I like to save it. You can't throw all your tricks at them or all your shots. You got to save at least one, and I like to say that I give the, whatever I'm shooting at a fair shake. So
yeah.
I
think it'd be cool to mount a turkey decoy on like a monster truck before next season for you, and I'll fly out there and I'll roar that monster truck around and let you blaze away.
That would be awesome. Last year I went up hunting with Justin Wilson up here. He used to live in Kalispell, Montana. And there's a town of Lakeside that's just south, which is actually, he lives up on top of the mountain from Lakeside. And anyway, we went out there thinking we were just going to have a heyday with the turkeys, and the turkeys beat the crap out of us. Nothing. They'd gobble from down the mountain all day and just wouldn't do anything. They wouldn't come up. We didn't see any birds up where we were. And we actually had woodpeckers come in, and these woodpeckers, every time I would call, they would mimic the sequence of exactly how I called, but by beating their head against a tree.
Wow.
It was the craziest thing. And I guess Justin, just the other day I was talking to him, and he said, dude, I was talking to my buddy here in Indiana, and he said that that's actually not that uncommon. Like he's had several times where woodpeckers will come in and they mimic you. Like that's apparently something that they do, which I thought was interesting. But anyway, all the birds were down in town on that hunt. Like they would not come out of the city limits of Lakeside. There was hundreds of birds in Lakeside. It was stupid, like 30 birds per yard. It was just dumb. And birds down there strutting around. And so I told him, I said, what we need to do is do exactly that. We need to mount the Reaper to the front of your truck and just go chase them down in the roadways and on them that way, because we're not going to get them out of the city limits. They feel too comfortable here.
Yeah. Well, in regards to your hunt, it sounds like there was an incredible amount of turkeys. I mean, it sounds awesome.
There were a lot of birds for sure. I don't know. Well, with obviously the birds that we saw, or the birds I ended up getting, were on a total, like, I mean, I don't know, probably 30, 40 miles away from where, I'd have to look at that on a map, but it seemed about that far from the initial birds we were hunting. But yeah, on the little, you know, kind of the interconnected pieces of land that we were running and gunning on for most of Saturday and some of Sunday, yeah, they had, I mean, the group of them was at least 40. And I don't know if it was all the same birds we were watching or if there were different birds kind of moving in and out and intermingling. But the way he made it sound is, I mean, it's just, there's just so many birds down there that, you know, that's why the farmers have issues with them.
Right.
And they don't, you know. But yeah, if we're, and then he was telling me out here in, you know, Montana, there's a huge fly fishing market, obviously. And that porcupine here is a big thing. And I mean, we got to the point where I was like, dude, let's just drive around and shoot porcupines. Cause there was like so many of them. And apparently you can sell the guard hair for like $15 an animal or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or 50, I can't remember what they get. Like they get like $40 an ounce for hair, but they'll buy the whole, you know, whole porcupine from me for $15. I think we could have at least paid for some of the fuel.
Right.
There's so many porcupines running around. But yeah, it was a cool hunt. I think just really cool, awesome for Clay for inviting us out there, and just super, super cool guy, super cool family. We got to meet those guys, and I mean, just had a heck of a time out there. But yeah, next year I'll have to be a little bit more ready to take my time on my shots and stuff.
Yeah, you know, it'd be really interesting to listen to Cole or Clay's point of view on this hunt.
We should try to get him on and just see. Maybe I can get him on and record like a little subsection. Let him tell his half the story.
Yeah, but there again, a classic story of just never give up till the end, especially like turkey hunting. I mean, everything can change in like 1 second. You know, even when you're down in the dumps, you're always in the game as long as you're out there hunting.
Yeah, exactly. There's a gun in your hand and you're out in the field. It can happen for sure.
Yeah,
and it ran into turkeys in every type of scenario that you could possibly run into a turkey. We ran into one. I mean, it just every time it just didn't work out, and then it plays out at the end, and we couldn't have gotten any luckier because if we would have kept going, or you know, decided maybe not to call there and just said, hey, let's go ahead and cut across this field, I know we would have spooked those birds out and probably never even knew they were there.
Yeah,
just like, hey, you know, we're here, let's rip one and see what happens. And sure enough, that's what it took, just right there.
Yeah,
I mean, I get excited when I get anything, and I'm always like happy for it. But I mean, this was one hunt you could not wipe the smile off my face. Like I was just like, holy crap! Like this really happened that way.
mm-hmm.
You know, it was cool.
It sounds like just a classic turkey hunt. You know, I'm always nervous or whatever that it's going to happen too quick. You know, so it is kind of nice to get, even though you're frustrated at the time, you know, to get some time out there and see some new land and you know, get another opportunity and make the hunt last a little bit. And then you came through in the end. That's the most important, or the coolest part, that you know, we kind of chuckle that you miss birds and stuff, but you seem to always come through. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's why, I mean, you hit it on the head. I like the hunt too much. So I don't really like to get it over with that fast.
Yeah.
You know, if that Tom came in and I could have got the first one, like no problem. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even really had to try, but you know, let's see what happens. You know, I like the odds to be stacked and, you know, against me, and I like a good comeback story.
Yeah.
You know, down bottom of the ninth, to one shot left, you know, that kind of thing.
Can I offer you one piece of advice though?
I would love a piece of advice.
All right. Just make sure you clean that shotgun, bud.
Well, in my defense, it's missing the front fiber optic on it. So I have like a peep sight up front and a little bead in the back.
Okay. You have a rail on it? Like a rail down?
I do.
Okay. So
I do.
You get a magnetic replacement that'll snap right on there.
I can. Yeah. I had one on my, so this is the first year. There's a local gun shop in town. This is my first year shooting a semi-automatic, and they had it's a Mossberg 935. So it's a 3.5 inch gun, which I've always kicked around getting. I've just never needed it. Mm-hmm. But now I'm kind of getting more into like the waterfowl stuff. I've got an interest in that. And I actually went out last year, had a pretty good waterfowl season too. So it's like, it might be worth, you know, for geese and stuff, invested in that. And they had it on consignment at this gun store for just dirt cheap. And I one of those things I just couldn't not do. But the caveat to it, I was trying to get the guy that owns the shop was being a negotiator between me and the guy that had it on consignment, because I kept offering him like lowballing him. but I told him, I said, I'll pay full price if you throw in 3 boxes of like Black Cloud, for me or whatever. And he just, more than anything, just messing with him. But he ended up giving me a good deal. And it was like kind of like the same thing, actually. It's funny that it ends this way with your story at the beginning. Not same faith-based concept, but I just backed off of it because it was one of those things I almost talked myself just out of doing it, period. And I left my final offer at him at like, I don't know, like 275 or something, and just left it there. And then I had honestly forgotten about it. And then Travis, the guy that owns the shop, texted me one day and goes, "Hey man, that guy said he thought about it and he'd take 275 for it." And it was like 3 weeks later. So must have just played the quiet game for him a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Kind of like turkeys. Sometimes if you shut up, they'll eventually gobble back at you to figure out where you're at.
Oh, for sure. But yeah,
so
sounds like a cool hunt. You got to see a lot, and at the end of the day, you got your birds.
That's right. Yeah, it was awesome, man. So
sweet.
Story 1 of turkey takers right there.
Right. Roger that, buddy.
2020. Just like hindsight on those shots I took. 2020.
I thought of a second Christmas gift for you. It's like Rambo style, like bullet, crisscrossed over your shoulder with so you never have to wonder where your next shell is.
No, I think next year I better go out with one of those sashes on.
And if I
just loaded to the hilt.
If I do that, I might as well get you the Rambo knife that you can wear on your side too.
Yeah. Go out there with a red headband on. Maybe not red. Maybe a fluorescent orange or something.
Yeah, not red.
No, red wouldn't be a good idea because if there's anybody else like me out there,
all right,
just swinging.
Well, congratulations, man. Thanks for sharing your story.